Hey YouTube, it's C7 here, the Agent Fairy deck profile. Yeah, just gonna go right in. So you have the 3 staple Master Hyperions, like in any agent deck. You gotta run 3 of them. They're pretty easy to get out, and they clear back row, clear monsters. They attack a lot. Yeah. Alright, they're pretty self-explanatory. And then 2 Archlord Kristyas. They are kind of hard to get out, to get the 4 fairies in the graveyard with this deck, but when you do get them out, they're really convenient to get out. They stop special summoning, they add a fairy from the grave to the hand, and when they get sent from the field to the grave, they get put back on the top of the deck. And everybody says that's a bad thing, but it's not always. You can just keep recycling the Kristyas over and over again. So on to the agents. I run 2 Earth, 2 Jupiter, and 2 Venus. The Earth search out other agents, synchro because they're tuners, and they get out your Hyperions. 2 Jupiters are the strong agents, beaters, and power up your light fairies by banishing an agent, and they're pretty good altogether. And the 2 Venus. They are your level 3s for overlaying for rank 3s, and they get out your shine balls to get rank 2s, and they're just pretty good, 1600. And then onto the hand traps of this deck. I run 1 Herald of Orange Light, 1 Honest. For the light hand traps, he negates effects by discarding him and another fairy, and yeah, Honest is really self-explanatory. So good. And then for the dark hand traps, I run 1 Gorz and 1 Tragoedia. He is really good when you go first, you draw him, and when you take battle damage, or when you just take damage when you don't control a card, you special summon him, and you get the token if it's battle damage, and yeah. And then Tragoedia, if you take battle damage, you just special summon him. And he is your Exceeds, your Synchros, your, the mind control of the deck, pretty much. The main mind control. And then 1 Chaos Sorcerer for the Chaos side of the deck. He banishes your opponent's monsters. He clears out Dark Worlds when they have Graphas out. And he's pretty much, you summon him, you use the effect, and then you synchro with Earth for an 8. And then I run 2 Card Troopers. These I just added in because what I do with them is I mill 3, fill up the grave with light fairies, and then I special summon a Kristya, and then when they get destroyed, you get a +1. And these guys, however, I'd probably just run 1, so side out the other one with something else. And then, to finish up the 21 monster count, I believe, I run 3 Mystical Shine Balls for your rank 2s. If you cannot summon anything, but you have an Honest in the hand, and your opponent just has a bunch of beaters, you summon in attack mode, they attack, just Honest. So, pretty good. On to the spells. I think I run 10 spells. I run 1 Book of Moon, 2... They basically just, it's a staple, and they stop your opponent's attacks. I run 2 Cards from the Sky. People say to run 3. I just run 2, because whenever I have that in the hand, I don't normally draw a fairy that I would want to banish. Like I draw an Earth, but if I absolutely need to, play that on Earth. Usually play that on a Kristya though, because those are harder to get out, so play that on Kristya. And then the Dark Hole, Heavy Storm, Mind Control, and Monster Reborn. These are just staples in pretty much decks. The Mind Control is Synchros and Exceed. And then the 2 MSTs. I might run a 3rd, take out a Card Trooper for a 3rd, but right now I'm just running 2 to see how that goes. And that is the 10 card spells. Or, I don't know how many spells. 9 card spells, yeah. Then onto the traps. I run 10 traps, 2 Bottomless Trap Hole, clear out Dark Worlds, just any deck that gets out strong monsters. I run 3 different 3D prisons, because get rid of your opponent's Graphas if they're running Dark Worlds, and any just stronger monster that your opponent has to get rid of them, and they're really good. And then I run 2 Mirror Force for the protection, like with Deep Prison, stuff like that, but those are just really good at 2. And then for the Solemn stuff, I run 1 Warning, 1 Judgment. I might get another Warning and put it in there with a card to replace Card Trooper. But right now I'm just testing 1 and 1. And then to finish it all with the last card, I run 1 Starlight Road for when my opponent Mirror Forces, Heavy Storms, Dark Holes, or when I just absolutely need a Stardust. You play a Heavy. If your opponent does not have a response, you play a Starlight Road, and you get a Stardust. So that's the 40 card main deck with the 21 monsters, 9 spells, 10 traps. Onto the extra deck, I run 2 Gachi Gantetsus. They power up your monsters. They are kind of hard to be destroyed. Easy to summon with the Venus. And they're just overall a really good Exceed. I run 1 Muzurhythm. That is also just a test. I usually do not get him out. If I can get a 3, I'd get Temtempo, something like that. But he is just if I absolutely need to clear out some opponents' really tough monsters. It's pretty good rank 3 to get out then. I run 1 Acid Golem. I usually don't get him out, but if my opponent's running Dark Worlds and they play Skill Drain, and if I have an Agent Venus, I'll summon another one, and then I get Acid Golem, and it's just a 3,000 beater. And then I run 1 Utopia. The only level 4, I think, or I usually want it, overlay the Jupiters for that. I'd banish them for the Hyperions, but Mind Control and Tragoedia. That's how I usually get out Utopia, and 1 Jupiter if I have to. But Utopia is good if you get him out. You don't absolutely. And I run 1 Dark Mist, because if I get a Venus, I'll usually get 3 and get a Dark Mist, like half the time. The other half I'll get Gachis, but he is just really good to get in, if you can. But what I found is he usually just gets Raigeki Breaked, or Dark Hole, or like Grapha's effect against Dark Worlds. He always gets destroyed by effects before you get to use his whole effect, but just once or twice changes the whole game. It could. And then, for another Exceed, Temtempo. He is really good against Exceed. I usually get him out, but his effect is detach a material from an opponent's Exceed, and then he gain all Djinn monsters gain 500, so he's a 2200. It's during either player's turn, and you get to remove an Exceed material from an opponent's card. So, good all around, pretty much. And then 1 Wind Up Zen Mains. That is just self-explanatory, I guess. If you need to clear out opponent's monsters, and you have Zen Mains on the field, Dark Hole, he doesn't get destroyed. You get to destroy, say, like an opponent's spell or trap if they have one, and you get to clear out your opponent's monsters. And then that was the last Exceed. On to the Synchros. I run 1 Dark End with the Chaos Sorcerer and the Earth. With Chaos Sorcerer's effect, you banish 1, summon Earth, search a Jupiter or Venus, Synchro, and get Dark End. His effect to destroy a monster, and then get out a Hyperion. And, yeah. I run a Gravity Warrior just because he's a level 6, and now that I run Jupiters, there's a good possibility of me needing a level 6, and so his effect is just, you gain 300 attack for each face-up monster your opponent controls, so it gives him a power-up, and then if your opponent has a defensive position monster, it goes into face-up attack mode, and then it has to attack. So, against, like, actually, never mind. And then 1 Lightning Warrior, because it's level 7, and I sometimes get him out with Venus, Shine Ball, and Earth. If I really need him, I could get him out, but I don't usually. But when I do, he's kinda good. If he destroys an opponent's monster by battle, and sends it to the grave, then your opponent takes 300 damage for each card in their hand. So it does a lot of damage. And then I run 1 Scrap Dragon for the level 8. because he destroys your opponent's monsters, or your opponent's cards, and some of yours. And that's the only effect that it's used in this deck. And then I run 2 Stardust. I run 2 because with the Starlight Road is how I usually get them out. If I can get out of level 8, usually I'll get out of Scrap Dragons, and then I'll Starlight Road the Stardust. But if I can get out a second one, that would be also good to have one that I Synchro Summoned instead of Starlight. And then for the last Exceed, I run TG Hyper Librarian. I usually get that guy out because with his effect, I just get to keep drawing one every time a monster gets Synchro Summoned. And he's a kind of good 2400 beater. And that's it for the 15 card extra deck. And then I run a 15 card side deck as well. 1 Consecutive Light. I usually would just side that in against Dark Worlds because it would get destroyed, but it'll at least stall them for at least a turn. Like, just 1 turn while they can't summon Darks. They can't get out their Tour Guides, their Silvas, their Beige. They can't get Graphas. And if they do have all their Graphas and Silvas and stuff, and you can't draw anything, to, like any monsters or any traps, and you draw him, he'll last you a turn. Probably more. And then also against Dark Worlds, I run 3 DD Crows, because you just discard and you remove from play Graphas from your opponent's grave. Or if you have to, and they have a gate, you can just banish like a Snow from their grave, a Beige, a Silva, stuff like that. They clear, so they are good against Dark Worlds. For the, I side 2 Victorias, in case anybody runs Chaos Dragons. You just summon them, and then your opponent cannot attack other fairies, and they're 1800 attack, which is pretty good. And every turn, once per turn, you get a special summon a dragon from your opponent's grave. So you get like a red MD from their grave, a light pulsar, a dark flare, and then you have just a strong beater on your field. And then I run 2 Leeching the Light. That's against like fairies and other decks that run light monsters, and against E-Heroes, because if I draw 2 of those, then, and you have a bunch of monsters and your opponent has a strong The Shining, just play 2 of them, and then all your monsters get really high on attack, and they're just really good against E-Heroes and fairies. And then I run 3 Smashing Ground. I'd side those in against like fairies, wind-ups, like meta decks, but usually I don't side those in unless my opponent's running wind-ups, like Inzectors, fairies, Chaos Dragons, stuff like that. They just clear out your opponent's field. And then I run 2 Compulsory, because those just return opponent's monsters to the hand. They're good. And I side those in against like Dark Worlds to get their Graphas back in the hand if you need to and you can't get rid of their Grapha from the field. And fairies, Dino Rabbits, and meta decks. 1 Mirror of Oaths. They stop your opponent's Dino Rabbits. They stop fairy agents because when somebody tries to special summon a monster from their main deck, you destroy the summoned monster, and then you get to draw a card. So I tried 3. I only have 1, but 3 is good to side against Dino Rabbits, agents, and anything that special summons from the deck a lot. So run 3 Mirror of Oaths. And for the last card, I run 1 Torrential Tribute. Most people would run 2 in the main deck. I don't really prefer running that. I'd side it in against like Dino Rabbits, agents, and stuff that summons a lot, side that in, but yeah, it's just a side deck pretty much. So that's the deck list for the September 2012 Agent deck. So just, that's pretty much it. Alright, C7 out.